Hey Nation, welcome to the Culinary Medicine Kitchen. I am Chef Dr. Mike. I am so glad you are here today. I am so excited about the recipe and the things we're going to have an opportunity to chat about today. The Culinary Medicine Kitchen is where we transform those lessons we learn studying culinary medicine in the classroom into tasty treats. And we've got a great one today. One of the tenets of culinary medicine is cooking with the seasons, the rhythms, the natural movement of the foods as they progress through the seasons, and we get to experience them and add variety to our menu and excitement about what's coming. And fall I think has to be my favorite for a whole lot of reasons, but to be honest, mostly it's about the food. And one of the other things that fall brings when it brings these holidays is it can bring some stress. People can get stressed out about cooking in the kitchen, and we've got the answer for that today. I'm going to demonstrate it with this fantastic recipe that you're going to be able to use for your holiday meal. Blow your family and friends away. Sophisticated, delicious, and it just really embodies so many of these flavors. So one of the things that I want to use and chat about to reduce these stress levels is something called mise en place, which is French. So another bonus of the Culinary Medicine Kitchen, you get to learn a little French. It's mise en place, which means everything in its place. And that's what you see here. I've got everything I need to create today's menu, which is a red curry squash soup. So let's go ahead and start, and I'll talk about things as we get going. But what we've got here is another French word, mirepoix, which is onions, celery, and carrots, and that is French for onions, celery, and carrots all chopped up. So we're going to go ahead and add our carrots first here to a little bit of olive oil and butter. And I'm going to go ahead and season that with a little bit of salt. Holy cow, you said, Chef Dr. Mike, the cardiologist, just added salt to food. Yes, indeed. We're talking about using real, wholesome, natural ingredients. The natural sodium here is really low. We want to properly flavor and build those flavor profiles as we cook so our food is delicious. And we're adding very, very little sodium when we season natural foods appropriately as we move through the process. And in fact, if you want to cut down on your sodium, just don't eat the processed junk. 75% of daily sodium intake in the U.S. comes from highly processed and manufactured foods. And we're going to also now go ahead and add our carrots, our other part of the mirepoix, a little bit of celery as well. And we put those together. And we just want to cook these for a couple of minutes. Go ahead, sweat these out. Now I've got here a little pumpkin pie spice. Again, I want you to relax. This is all about no stress. Culinary medicine makes you a secret agent in the kitchen. That means you've got a license to chill. So I've got all these recipes on the website, including the spice blends. Here's a little mild curry blend as well. And we're going to put those in there. And one of the reasons we're going to do that now is because we're actually going to toast the spices. So that's really going to amp up the aromatics here as well. So we're just going to let that sweat a little bit. And I want to take a moment while this is cooking down to, again, talk about mise en place. What does that mean, everything in its place? Well, it means you saw that I had the onions, the carrots, the celeries, all pre-chopped. I can get that done a good bit ahead of time. And when it comes time to make the meal, to cook it, I've got everything right where I need it. So I'm not trying to cut carrots and celery as some of them are overcooking, some are undercooking, big chunks, etc. This is a really important life lesson. I use this when I change hats, when I exchange my chef's knife for a stethoscope, and I get called into an emergency in the cardiac catheterization laboratory, and I go in at 2 a.m. and the patient's rolling in. We're not searching for sterilization equipment. We're not looking for syringes. We're not running around for medicine and other things we need. They're all prepackaged on a tray. So we bring it out. Everything is right where we need it. So this concept of mise en place is really applicable to a lot of things in our life. So we've sweated this out. And now we're going to go ahead and add a little bit of white wine. You can skip this step if you want. I like to add a little bit of white wine, and of course, if you want to make sure that you're using really good white wine. Folks, there's no such thing as cooking wine. There's only drinking wine. If you're not going to drink it, don't put it in your food. We're going to cook this until it essentially evaporates, so the liquid's just about gone. You may say, well, why are we adding the wine if we're doing that? And that's because not only some of the flavors, but a lot of the healthful benefits, the compounds that we're going to extract here require alcohol as a solvent to bring them out. So by adding some white wine, we're going to add a whole nother layer of flavors here. We're going to go ahead and cook this off as well. And while this cooks down, I'll tell you a little bit about the squash. So what we're using here is a red Kuri, or also known as a Hokkaido squash. And it's really got a wonderful flavor, a little bit like chestnuts, a little nutty. It's sweet, especially when it's cooked. And what we're going to do, and again, this can be done ahead of time. You can see I've done this here, mise en place concept, is we'll get some fresh organic squash. What we want to look for when we pick it up is that it's heavy. It has a good weight to it for its size. We're looking for 1 to 2 pound squash, about 1 to 2 of those. It'll give you roughly about 3 pounds of flesh when you're all done. We're going to cut it. We're going to scoop out those seeds. And again, a very important concept in culinary medicine is the zero waste kitchen. We're talking about sustainability for our wallets because we want to use everything, but as well as something that is really good for the planet. And so don't throw away those seeds. They make a great snack. Again, you can put them out at holiday time, roast them up. I like it with a little chili pepper on it, and you can roast those up and serve them as well. If you're just roasting squash and you want to serve it, the skin of the red curry is edible. Here we're not going to use this, but again, if you have a compost area or use that, this is certainly great for that. And again, the skins are edible. You see how it comes right out of there, and easily the soft flesh is done. We should be able to just pierce it like that. That tells us that it's done. And right now our wine has just about evaporated out here. So we've cooked down, we've reduced that liquid. We're going to go ahead and add our squash to this. And we're going to go ahead and add some chicken stock as well. And then we're going to season again with a little bit of salt. And I'm going to use a little bit of white pepper as well to season it. Now remember, salt is a flavor enhancer, so that's going to help us as we build those layers. Pepper, when we use it, is actually a flavoring, so it's going to change the flavor a little bit as we cook. So we want to keep those concepts in mind. And really, it's that simple to make this soup. Now we're just going to let it cook down for about 30 to 40 minutes. Bring it up to a boil, turn it down to a simmer, and then once that's done, it's going to naturally thicken. You can use an immersion blender like I have here to do it right in the pot. You can also let it cool down. Be very, very careful when we're adding hot ingredients to a food processor or to a blender, but you could certainly blend it that way, and we're going to get a thick, naturally creamy soup. One of the other great advantages of using our own spice blends and making this from scratch as opposed to pouring it out of a container is that we control what goes in and also what doesn't go in. So many of these processed foods, and this is the theory of culinary medicine that we talk about in the classroom, we share the science on this, causes so many problems in terms of affecting our health and pushing us in our bodies to a pro-inflammatory state. When we can cook it naturally like that, we can eliminate, we can avoid those, we control what goes in. But also very importantly, from a culinary standpoint, we get to flavor it to our flavor profile. So the recipe for the spice blend, for example, that I have on the website that we used here is a very mild curry. So it's not going to outspice anyone, it's just going to add some of those really warm aromatics that we associate with the curry flavor and that region on the globe. But if it's something that you like in terms of, hey, I like a little bit more spice, hey, add a little bit more chili powder, add a little hot sauce. You know, that is one of the great things about being in the kitchen and crafting into the flavor profiles that you like and enjoy. So right now, I've got some cooking down, and we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna show you how to plate this up and serve it to blow your guests away. So join me at the table, won't you? Hey nation, welcome to my favorite part. That's enjoying the fruits of our labors with family and friends. Now for this dish, and again, everything is on the recipes. It's not complicated. You saw how simple it was to make. We applied that principle of mise en place, so we got everything ready. It was no stress, no rush, no worries, Mom. Everything is good, and in fact, everything is delicious. In the recipe, we've got a garnish that contains crab, roasted corn, roasted poblano, fresh pomegranate, and a little bit of grapefruit juice. That acidity is important because even though there's no cream or such in this recipe, and by the way, I use some chicken stock in the recipe, but if you want to keep it completely vegetarian, you can use some vegetable broth, vegetable stock, vegetable nage in there to keep it vegetarian, and obviously leave the crab out. You can use any kind of garnish you want. I really like this garnish for a lot of reasons. You know, squash, winter squash in particular, is one of the three sisters of the Native American tradition. And the other two were beans and corn. And we have a saying in the kitchen, you know, if it grows together, it goes together. So corn and squash is a really natural taste combination. And when we add those spices and those of the pumpkin pie, the warming spices of the curry, it's just really fantastic. The pomegranate, another just great fall fruit, ancient roots, all, you know, back to the Middle East and the Orient as well. And it's going to add a little bit of brightness. And the grapefruit juice may seem a little bit of a surprise, but again, that acid is something in cooking like salt, which is really a flavor enhancer. So it's going to lift the soup up and really make it dance, make it exciting on the palate. And the poblanos, again, you can leave them out if you want. You can use a different roasted chili if you like a little more heat. Plenty of ways to plate this to give you two very different but equally stunning presentations. So I've got the red curry squash here, and I just got a really small one, hollowed it out, and we filled the soup in this fantastic, you know, top-notch presentation. I've also got this here, and you know, if you've got a little bit of the soup, you see how just wonderfully thick, smooth, creamy puree that is right there. Just serve it this way. It's really, you know, absolutely stunning presentation, and it's just going to go so good with all of this. And finally, of course, I've got a little bit of French wine from the Rhone. Why? Because this little beauty pairs perfectly with roasted squash and the flavor profiles that we put together. So thank you for joining me today in the Culinary Kitchen. I'm Chef Dr. Mike. Until we meet again, may the only pain in your life be champagne.